Well, Avatar is also Disney.
Oh. Well, how does that work then? Is that... I don't know.
Just assume Disney owns everything. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Explained Weekly Q&A. I'm Alex.
And I'm Molly.
And we're going to try something a little different. We've never done like an introduction like that before, but this episode we're going to try to make a little more, podcasty, conversational, stuff like that.
I realize that sometimes new people stumble across these and they're like, who are these bozos?
Right, so...
Why are they talking about Star Wars?
Quick little intro. We're going to try it out. We're going to talk about the Mandalorian news a lot. I mean, a lot of news came out this past week. Mm-hmm. Some movie news, some TV news, some news about movies that never wound up happening. So we're going to talk about all that. We're still taking questions to answer, but they're all kind of based around that. Before we dive into it, I just thought we would catch people up on our past week, because we had some little Star Wars activities going on. Yeah. Kind of do like a Force Center, what they do. They do their Star Wars adventures of the past week. But we went to the Empire Strips Back last weekend. And I actually legitimately want to talk about it because it was way better than I thought it was going to be. It
was very good. And like, before you start thinking, oh, it was probably really raunchy, why are they talking about this? It actually wasn't. It was like really well done.
It's a parody burlesque show. And the music they chose was excellent. We went to it thinking like, oh, this will be fun. We got our tickets and thought it was going to be goofy, but I think we both walked away from it really impressed.
Oh, my jaw was on the floor after the fact. Like, I was so impressed by the whole show. We went to the 9:30 show, which I think was a good idea because they did 2 shows a night. And so I was like, let's go to the later show, get the rowdier crowd. And it was a lot of fun. The host was really cool. He made, the little breaks in between numbers really fun. And the people around us were kind of funny because you could tell some of them didn't really know Star Wars that well, but we're having a great time.
Oh yeah, people there were clearly Star Wars fans, but not on the level. They're not going to be on YouTube looking up Star Wars stuff. There was someone behind us when Boba Fett had a number, and they were like, "Let's go, Jabba the Hutt!" And I thought that was excellent. They were so enthusiastic and so happy to be there. That gave me a good laugh. But I knew it was going to be special when the first number was Luke on a Tauntaun, came out on a legitimate full giant Tauntaun, and I was like, "Oh, the production level on this is way bigger than I thought."
It had a person inside of it, didn't it?
I think it had 2. I think
2 people.
One person was each leg.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
But yeah, everything about it. I don't want to talk about it too much and spoil the numbers really, because they were very fun. Just about all of them had a surprise where I was like, oh, this is neat. I get what's going on. And then something would happen that would just get a cheer out of everyone. Yeah.
Some of the numbers were specifically very Star Wars-y. The I don't know, the basis around the dance number was something that you would see in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm thinking of the 3PO one specifically. But anyways, yeah, if you search it online, you might be able to pull up a little preview. Because I know on Facebook they have videos of what it's like with little snippets.
Yeah.
So it'll give you a brief idea of it. I hope it comes back to Atlanta.
I mean, it's here until January, or at the end of January. So, yeah, it was a good time. We would recommend it. I also wanted to shout out just a little fun Star Wars thing. I ordered this so long ago that I forgot about it. And then it came this week, and I'm just so happy with... This is my very first Hot Toys ever. But my new Cobb Vanth doll is the best.
Was it you or me who called it you called it a doll?
I called it well, I opened it up and I was like, yeah, this is a doll.
I had no idea that the Hot Toys models like this were had fabric on them and are very doll-like. I realize that they're, some people prefer action figure, but the detail on this is insane.
Yeah. This is not sponsored. Hot Toys did not send me this. I just love it so much. Like, I'd never had a Hot Toys before, but I opened this up. I kind of did one of those things where I was like, well, I'm just going to get all the Cobb Vanth stuff like I do with Biggs Darklighter. And there's no Biggs Hot Toys yet, so I got this, and man, it's cool. So I just wanted to put him out, and he can just be here with us for the rest of the show.
Oh, okay.
Just hanging out.
One of
Thanks,
us.
Cobb. Well, let's get into the main topic of today's video, and that would be the Mandalorian movie news, The Mandalorian and Grogu. So I've already talked extensively about it. People have heard my thoughts, but I wanted to give Molly a chance to share her thoughts, and then we're going to answer a lot of the questions that I have seen pop up surrounding this announcement as we get into it.
Grogu's gonna be on the big screen.
Bigger than we've ever seen him.
And I'm pretty excited about it.
So that's one of the things I wanted to cover, is that I feel like my reaction to it was a little more reserved, and you were a lot more excited. So I wanted to give you a chance to share your excitement.
I will say my very first initial reaction was like, oh man, they're doing this instead of season 4, bummer. But that's not necessarily the case. I guess we don't really know for sure. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? I think this is a smart move.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that is one of the biggest questions people have had, is just, is there going to be a season 4? And Deadline put out in their article, I guess they talked to a source at Lucasfilm, but yeah, season 4 is still in the works. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're going to do this movie first. It might be that this is what season 4 was going to be, and then season 4 will actually be season 5, which can get confusing, but...
Yeah. I also have thought about it kind of like, imagine if the Mando and Grogu story and Luke story that we got in Book of Boba Fett, imagine if we got that as a movie in theaters. I'm thinking, like, if they have a very specific story, Mando Grogu story that they want to tell before they get into the meat and potatoes of what season 4 is going to be about, why not make it a movie? I think that is actually a really good idea. And to, like, front load their continuing, like, ongoing movie plans with this, with, like, their 2 big money makers, you know, I think that's a good idea.
I do think, like, a lot of my reservations and worries came from just, like, the business side of all of this, which, you know, Star Wars is a business, so I have to admit that, and, like, this is the reality, so I'm accepting it. But my worry was that maybe Disney was like, we need a Star Wars movie right away. What's hot right now? Mando and Grogu, like, make it a movie. Toss away the show. Not toss it away forever, but just, like, give us a movie real fast. Mm-hmm. But you were like, we don't know what the reality is, and you suggested to me, it's like, well, you know, maybe Jon Favreau wanted to do this. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, if it actually is like a creative decision first, and Jon was writing up season 4 and just had this idea that this is a bigger story to tell, then I am a lot more happier about that. Like, if it's Jon Favreau's idea all the way, and not someone up, it's not Bob Iger going like, get me a Baby Yoda movie right now, mm-hmm. then I feel better about all of it.
Yeah. I try not to worry about that stuff too much. Like, I think I said it the other day when we were taking a walk with Hilo. We don't have to know how the sausage was made. It just tastes good. Like,
hopefully.
Because we know some people in the entertainment industry, and sometimes, you know, they'll be a little bit more jaded about the final product because they know everything about what went into it and just all the drama attached to that. So I'm like, I'm keeping a very open mind about what this movie's going to be. I'm also keeping pretty low expectations for the quality of this movie.
Yeah, like, I am kind of worried. A lot of shows that become movies, it can work, but not always. Like, I think X-Files is a great example of a series that had a movie in the middle of its run, and I really like that movie. Serenity ended Firefly, and I think that worked great. But there are a lot of like, usually there's sitcoms that become movies, and then you're like, okay, well, that just felt like a 90-minute version of my favorite sitcom or whatever, it's like, is that worth a movie? But I do think that with The Mandalorian, there is a chance to tell like a big epic scope story. I mean, if you look at Jon Favreau's episode, the one that he has directed, it's The Marshal, and it's awesome. And it's very cinematic. So I do think that there are plenty of ideas that Jon Favreau could go with to create a movie out of this story.
Yeah. I was trying to look up other TV shows that had movies come out, and most of them were like a movie came out after the show ended or to wrap up the show, like Serenity came out for Firefly. And I don't think we saw, was it El Camino? The Breaking Bad movie?
I saw it.
How was that?
It was fine.
Because like that show was so great and people loved it so much, and then that movie came out and I didn't really hear much about it.
It had some cool moments. It was unnecessary.
But did it feel like a longer episode of the show?
Yeah.
I think that's what this is gonna feel like for most people, because we've been watching it at home on our couches. We're gonna go see it in the theaters. It's gonna feel a little more epic just because we're in theaters with a bunch of other people watching it on the big screen. But ultimately, I think it will just feel like a longer episode. But I'm okay with that.
That is part of my worry, again, from the business side of things. And I expressed this in the video, but like the box office situation right now is pretty rough across the board. Disney had a rough 2023. And I wonder if people who have been trained to sit and watch Din and Grogu on their couch are going to feel compelled to go to the theater to see their next adventure, or are they going to be like, I'll wait until it comes out on streaming?
Yeah.
And like, I do think the risk is lessened a bit, because I don't think this is going to be a massive $300 million movie. I think they could probably make it for under $100 million. Like if you look at something like The Creator, which looked phenomenal, I do think that there is a chance that they can do a smaller budget Star Wars movie, be a little experimental with it, and just see how that performs.
Right. I think this is Star Wars' way of making a Barbie movie.
Go on.
Who sells them the most merch?
Like toys. Okay.
Grogu.
We're going to enter the
Who
Grogu.
loves Grogu? People of all ages.
We're going to go into the Grogu multiverse. There's all kinds of Grogus here.
I say that meaning more like people of all ages will, if they like these characters, they will want to go see the movie. Like parents will want to take their kids to go see a Mando and Grogu movie because Grogu is one of the main titles, and like he appeals to everyone.
I do think you're right there. I think that, I mean, looking back at 2023 again, like the Mario Bros movie also did very well.
Yeah.
One of the few movies that did last year, and it was aimed at kids. Not saying that this is going to be a kids movie, but it's got Grogu in it. It's going to be fun, and probably flashy and full of excitement and adventure. So I do think it will appeal to kids of all ages.
Yeah.
And also I talk to my parents, who I consider to be like, I always get their opinion on Star Wars stuff because they're not that involved in it. But I told them they're doing a Mandalorian movie, and my mom did go, oh, I'd probably go to the theater to see that. So I'm like, okay.
That is probably the general consensus of people who are very surface level Star Wars watchers. Like, oh yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah,
I'll go see that.
I just hope it's fun enough.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I will say is that there could have been a better way to present this movie. is that I kind of wish that it were part of the celebration presentation. If it were part of the plan, which I kind of think it wasn't at that point. But I think that I would have had a more excited reaction to it if they were up on stage talking about The Mandalorian and then they were like, guess what? We're going to do a movie.
Yeah.
Give us a little tease.
That brings us back to like talking about the business side. And it's like, why did they just suddenly give us this news? And they didn't mention this at all at Celebration. It makes it feel like it was a spur of the moment sort of choice. And I was thinking about it last night. I was like, man, there's been a lot of just talk about the Rey movie and Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. And when this news came out, it didn't make me think of this at first, but I was like, what if they were considering doing this and they just like pushed it ahead to kind of like try to push all the negative news off the slate for a little while?
I mean,
that'll never happen.
Yeah, that's always going to be there. Those people are always going to exist to be online and complain.
Yeah.
But I do think there is some sense in putting out a lower stakes Star Wars movie. Like, part of me is like, it's going to be the first time in like 6 years that we've been in the theater to see Star Wars. And I wanted it to be something that felt like a big return, like The New Jedi Order or Dawn of the Jedi or Filoni's movie.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I know. So I can kind of see some sense in that, to be like, let's
ease back in.
Yeah.
Just to Star Wars being a movie. Let's not make it as big of a deal as you just said you wanted it to be.
Right, because that's not going to matter to me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of in my head. I want it to be this big thing that we're going back to see. But once the movie's out, I'm not going to care. I'm going to go, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, people are always going to, set their expectations really, really high, get their hopes up for this kind of thing. And maybe I'm jaded for just like doing what we do, but I just stopped doing that. I'm just like, I go into every Star Wars thing very low stakes, very just like, all right, let's see if this is a good time or not.
Yeah.
And then I'll go from there.
That's all I'm looking for, is a good time. But what I wanted to kind of say about the messaging and how they talked about this is that I think it would have felt a little better if they were like, we're doing a Mando movie, and we'd be like, cool. And then they're like, and guess what? This is all going to build to a New Republic Imperial Remnant War movie. Dave Filoni's directing it. And we'd be like, oh, that's awesome. And guess what? We're also doing Dawn of the Jedi. We're going to go see how the Force like started talking to people and all that stuff. And it was like, wow. And Daisy Ridley is coming back. Like, they could have escalated the news and we would have been freaking out, I think, and celebrating it a little more. And then instead, months later, they're like, we're doing a Mando movie and it's going to be out first. And you're like, oh.
This could...
Okay.
I don't want to harp on this for too much longer, but this could also be because of the strikes. Like, Filoni and Favreau could have already had a pretty basic outline in their heads or some stuff already written for season 4, and the strike happened and a lot of stuff didn't get written or produced or made at all. And now that the strike is over, they're like, all right, we got to jump back, like, quick.
I do think that makes a lot of sense if they have Filoni's movie and they're like, this is the target release date we want. Here are the story beats that we need to hit in The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew, etc.
Yeah.
And if they're like, well, we aren't going to have time to get season 4 done, so let's hit those story beats in a film. Like, I could kind of see that.
Yeah.
But let's get into some questions about The Mandalorian here. Pippin's #1 fan, great username.
Aww.
Pippin just wandered in here, but he hasn't hopped up yet, so fingers crossed. Pippin's #1 fan asks what we think it's going to be about.
See, I mean, I don't know. Like, my first thought was, okay, where did we leave off? This is like going to be Grogu's journeys. That was what the
I keep calling him his court mandated adventures.
Yeah,
the armorer was like, you have to take him on adventures as your apprentice.
And yeah, if this is just Grogu and Mando going on adventures together, great. But I was also like, who's the villain gonna be? I mean, ultimately the villain is always gonna be, in this time period, just the Imperial Remnant and Thrawn. But I don't know what exactly it's gonna be about.
I'm gonna steal some stuff from Force Center and Joseph Scrimshaw. Because, as usual, when I'm feeling like a little iffy about some news, he is just like the Star Wars counselor. I'll also try to remember to link to their episode on this exact topic, but he didn't have like a plot outline or anything, but he said that the personal stakes need to be big for this to be like a movie. And Grogu's challenge is just that he is afraid to lose Din. I mean, he's attached to his father, stepped away from being a Jedi because of it. So basically that could be the big emotional threat, is like they get separated. And they like almost did that at the end of The Mandalorian season 3. And I was excited about it. Yeah. I was like, oh, Din's captured. Grogu is going to have to be the one to save the day. And he did, but it just happened so fast. So I wouldn't mind seeing that play out a little bit more extreme.
Yeah. Or they've been living together in that little house for a while at this point, and Grogu is sick of Mando cramping his style, and he like is having more of a teenage rebellious era and like wants to go out and do stuff by himself.
He's gonna sneak out and it's gonna be Baby's Day Out, but in Star Wars.
Oh my god!
Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
It's gonna be like a slapstick comedy of everyone catch that baby, and he's just bumbling his way around.
I guess that's what they've been doing, right?
Yeah, everyone catch that baby. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, Maria asks if we are going to see Pedro Pascal in the movie. And that's another question of like, is he going to be in it? Even, or I assume, I don't know why we wouldn't continue to have him voice the character, but I saw a lot of people asking that question, like, is Pedro even going to be in it at all?
I hope so, but I'm also not getting my hopes up. Like, they went through all this trouble to for him to be forgiven for taking his helmet off. I would be going through whiplash if he takes it off again and then has to go back, and like there would have to be a really good final reason, either off or on, or I mean,
or it can be both. It can be a Bo-Katan situation. It's like,
but we need to see that process happen, and he cannot go back on it, and because, like I said, it's just whiplash. So I would love to see Pedro in this. I don't think we're going to. I think he'll voice it. And that's
I would be shocked if he didn't voice it. If he's in it, I don't think he'll be in it much. I think they'll save it for a big important moment. I'm still pro get over the helmet thing. Like I want him to be more flexible with it. So I hope that it happens, but I agree. It is just going to feel like going back and forth.
What if the very first scene of the movie is like a scene about like Den getting ready for the day? He has his helmet off. Like, what if we just get to see scenes of just Den doing mundane things,
brushing his teeth
before he goes out for the day and puts his helmet on?
Yeah, I mean, it could work.
That's a way around it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, they have shown that he takes his helmet off to eat, which back in season 1, he's like, I haven't taken my helmet off in front of anyone else since I was a child. And then he takes his helmet off to eat, and he's standing in the window. And I'm like, everyone can see you, dude.
The kids are going to be like, who's that guy?
Yeah. So, like, he definitely does take his helmet off to eat and brush his teeth sometimes. Oh, just got clawed in the thigh.
Put him down.
Well, he's going all over the place. I do kind of think, I guess I could see Pedro wanting to be in the movie. And I think from what we've heard, I think he wanted to have his face in season 1, and that wasn't originally part of the plan. I think maybe they were going to save it for season 2, when it's like, I have to take my helmet off to save Grogu. But I think I could see him being like, if I'm going to be in this movie, I want to be in this movie. I don't know that his face is going to be on the poster, but because then that would kind of spoil it.
Sure.
That he takes the helmet off.
No, I don't think they're putting his face on the poster anytime soon.
That's a shame.
It really is. I mean,
he'll be on the poster brushing his teeth.
Oh, please.
This whole movie's just a get ready with me. And Din is trying to be a social influencer now, and so that's why he doesn't notice Grogu has escaped and is wreaking havoc across Navarro.
He's doing a TikTok live, and
Grogu got out.
Sneaks out.
All right, we figured out what this movie is. Art Koenig asks if The Mandalorian and Grogu will bring all the Mandoverse characters together.
Could. I mean, that would be cool to see. Well, I mean, Ahsoka and Sabine are off doing their thing in another galaxy, but we could definitely see people from the other shows pop in.
I don't think it's going to be all of the Mandoverse. So this will come out after Skeleton Crew, so that cast will be introduced. But yeah, Ahsoka and Sabine are gone. I think that this is going to be a little more self-contained to The Mandalorian, and I would throw the Book of Boba Fett in there too. Like, I could see Boba Fett being in this, but like the usual cast that we see. Carson Teva will be around, which is great. I love that Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is now going to be in a Star Wars movie. I hope, fingers crossed. I think Pelly will be in it. Also crossing my fingers very hard for the Marshal. What's he doing? He's been in that back to tank for a while now. Let's get him out.
He's more machine than man now.
I hope not. Get him a new set of armor or something.
Who was the pirate gang, the leader of the pirate gang that we know is going to be in Skeleton Crew?
Oh, Vane?
Vane.
I think he's might still be around. Maybe he'll die in Skeleton Crew. We don't know. Maybe Hondo. Maybe they've been saving Hondo for his big screen debut.
We got to get Grief Karga on the big screen.
Yeah, Grief will be in it.
Mando!
Yeah, that's another thing Force Center threw out that I was like, that's accurate. That if they need to, explain how, like, because, not everyone who goes to see this is probably going to have seen The Mandalorian. So they have to set some things up, and Force Center called Grief Karga an exposition machine.
Oh, that's exactly what he is.
Just walking around explaining things to people. So yeah, Grief will be in it. IG-11. I think anyone that's been in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett is fair game.
Do you think, I'm trying to think, Jason Syndulla, like another kid?
Anything is possible. Like, I definitely think anyone in the Mandoverse is possible, but I'm not hedging my bets. I think it's going to be a little more self-contained, plus like some Imperial Remnant characters. That's probably going to be the connection to the larger Mandoverse.
Yeah, because we've kind of speculated that it would be kind of cool if Jason were doing something in Skeleton Crew, just because it is mostly centered around kids. So I don't know. I guess maybe after we see that show, we might have a better idea of who might show up.
Since we kind of touched on it, do you think there's going to be a crawl in this movie?
No.
I think there might be something kind of like Solo's introduction or Ahsoka's like Red Crawl. I think they might set up something, but I don't think they're going to do a giant, like previously on Disney Plus at the start of the movie.
They might.
That'd be interesting, but I am curious to see. But maybe they don't need to set anything up. They might just be like,
that's
look,
what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
These are their two biggest like characters right now. The biggest moneymakers, the most, well, maybe not the most
I'm thinking
recognized.
back to Serenity or X-Files. You know, I saw X-Files before the movie, before I saw the show. And I didn't feel lost. I loved the movie. That got me into the show. So, yeah, I guess they don't really need to explain that much. Be like, this is Din. He's a Mandalorian. He keeps his helmet on. This is his baby. He loves that baby.
They might show the scene of Grogu and Luke, and Grogu picking between the shirt and the lightsaber.
Here's another name I'll throw out for a character I hope appears is Keller and Beck.
Yeah.
Let's do some flashbacks with Grogu. Let's see Ahmed Best on the big screen, swinging those lightsabers around.
Oh my gosh.
Love that.
That would be so cool.
Eloasti wants to know if the Mandalorian and Grogu will use the volume. I have to imagine it will.
Yes. There's no reason for them not to, especially if they're trying to get this out. Not quick, but like, I just keep thinking in my head that they already have a story in mind. They want to crank this out, so to speak, and get it out there to make money before the other movies are supposed to come out. So I don't see why they wouldn't use the volume.
I do think they probably have the story, maybe even the script ready to go. Like, who knows how long this has been in the works. Like, we heard rumors of it a month or two ago, and I think we both kind of shrugged it off back then, but you know,
the rumor was season 4 was gonna be a movie.
Yeah, which just sounds like someone heard there was going to be a movie, and then, you know, that game of telephone happens, and it's just, I think all it meant was the next Mandalorian thing is going to be a movie, not a season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think John probably has the story and the script. So, and again, the volume was kind of made, the Mandalorian was made with the volume in mind. And the way that he has like perfectly shiny armor and stuff, I just think the Mandalorian has continued to impress me. The volume doesn't always work for me, but it usually does on the Mandalorian.
I hope it's not all volume.
I definitely don't think, I was going to get to that.
I will say that.
I'm sure they're going to build, I mean, even the Mandalorian isn't all volume. So with a larger budget for, let's say, like basically 4 episodes instead of 8, I do think they're going to build sets and stuff. I don't think it's going to be all volume, but I'm sure it will use the volume. Speaking of the fast turnaround, Mappa asks when we think it's going to be released.
Did they not say?
They did not say.
I guess
they just
didn't.
said it's going to enter production in 2024.
I would
this year
guess next year.
I would too.
Middle of next year, end of next year, maybe. I mean, they have May and December, right? Those are like the 2 big
Star Wars movie dates.
Star Wars months to release movies. December there's another Avatar movie coming.
Yeah, December 2025.
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
So they may be like, screw Avatar, we're going to put our movie out.
Well, Avatar is also Disney.
Oh. Well, how does that work then? Is that... I don't know.
Just assume Disney owns everything.
Well, then they'll high five and they'll put both movies out at the same day.
Now, I think May is probably more likely. And I think it's possible. I mean, The Mandalorian or like Ahsoka, shows like this, I think Ahsoka had like a 15-month turnaround from start of production to release. So if they get started soon, I think they can have it out in 2025, potentially May. I do think that's fast, but
it'll be like an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours.
Yeah, even if it's 2 hours, that's like doing half of a season of The Mandalorian. So, and that, I hadn't really thought of it like that. You know, a lot of Mandalorian runtimes, sometimes they get up to be an hour, but usually they're like 30, 40 minutes. So this is going to be like half of a season still.
Yeah.
In a sense. So that's nice. But I do think it'll come out in 2025.
Yeah.
I think
when's Celebration? April in Japan.
I didn't think about that. Huh.
I would be shocked if it were done by then.
Yeah,
but
I don't. Huh.
maybe
that's a good point though.
What if it is releasing in May, but they do a show of it in Japan?
I don't think they'd do that.
I don't think they would either, because people would spoil it.
Yeah, there'd be spoilers. They also, I mean, they want to sell those tickets. So I'm sure they'll do something. They'll have a special trailer.
Yeah.
There will be a panel all about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the new Jedi Order movie was probably always planned for 2026, and then they're just putting another movie up front first.
Maybe they show like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Kind of like they did for Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah, they always need something big and juicy to tease at Celebration or to show early at Celebration. So I would not be surprised if it were mostly finished and they showed everyone in Japan a sneak peek.
Do you have anything else to talk about The Mandalorian? Got 2 more little news bits to talk about.
I mean, I was going to ask you.
Please do.
Who you thought the main villain would be, or like, what's the problem for this story?
I mean, I assume they're going to be sent on a mission by Carson Teva. That's my guess. Someone from the Imperial
Zeb will
Remnant.
be in it.
Zeb could be, yeah. Yeah, because he'll be part of the New Republic. So I see him as more likely than like Jason or Ezra. I think just someone from the Remnant. I don't think Thrawn is going to be the big bad for this, but
I think, I feel like it would be smarter to save him for season 2 of Ahsoka.
He might be in it. He might be like the post-credit scene. Not that they would do that, but just to have, if they're fighting one member, if they're fighting Brindle Hux the whole time, and then they blow up a laboratory he had.
Yeah,
and then
the
at the
council
end,
guys.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
It's any number of them could be the baddies. Or it could like be he's just picking them off one by one. That's kind of what I thought season 4 would be, is like hunting each of these people down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just assume someone having to do with the Remnant.
Ever since I compared this movie to Barbie, I'm like, who would be the kin in this situation? And I was like, maybe the armorer.
Mando? I don't.
Like, if the armorer were the kin, and like she gets out and tries to like have everyone wear helmets all the time.
Like the whole galaxy.
I don't know. I'm spitballing.
She ran into an influx of Beskar, and she's like, I can helmet the whole population. Well, to shift gears a little bit, we also got the announcement of Ahsoka season 2.
Yes. Which we pretty much knew was happening, but nice of them to like officially acknowledge that. Yeah,
like that wasn't a surprise at all. It was more just a relief to have it confirmed. I was like, okay, thank goodness. I was a little worried when you didn't announce it right away or after the strikes. So just to have someone be like, this story is continuing, all those cliffhangers will be resolved, don't worry.
Well, we knew it would be resolved, we just didn't know how and where. Like, were they going to resolve it in Mando season 4 or, whatever. But it's nice to know that, yes, this particular show, it's getting its own second season.
Yeah.
Something that may or may not happen for Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan.
Yeah. I don't think Obi-Wan needs it.
Nah.
Book of Boba Fett, I don't know if it needs it either. So
I would like more Reva in my life somehow.
Well, that I feel like is just a different show.
It can be totally different. It could be a book, a comic.
Or no, I mean like
story.
a Hidden Path show or something.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. But one last bit of news, Elo Asti brings it up and asks how we are feeling learning that Benioff and Weiss were going to do a First Jedi story for Star Wars.
This news makes me feel nothing. I'm just like, well, okay, they're doing it still, just with someone else in charge.
My biggest reaction to the news was the way it was reported, because they just, as usual, people made like these clickbaity titles, and excerpts, and it made it sound like Benioff and Weiss were being all like, well, we said we wanted to do this, and Lucasfilm said no.
And they're doing it anyways with somebody else.
And then you read the article, and they say, like, they're very cordial about it. And they're like, yeah, we pitched this specific idea for the First Jedi story, and they passed on that pitch. And so they're going with James Mangold's version, or maybe they workshopped something themselves. So it's more just that Benioff and Weiss had like a specific vision, and for whatever reason, that vision didn't line up with what Lucasfilm thought was right. And so they parted ways, and Benioff and Weiss seem like completely fine with that. But if you just read the headlines, it sounds like they were throwing shade. And I'm like, I don't get that from the article at all.
Yeah, I mean, this happens all the time. We just don't hear about it. It's more behind the scenes stuff that, like, you wouldn't care if you never heard about this happening. Like, it's making people angry, but why?
Yeah, and I will say the annoying thing is, like, okay, so they just had like a story pitch, and I guess you hadn't heard on it and passed on it yet, but you still announced it. Like, that's the issue of,
they're
like,
learning.
Yeah.
They're learning from their mistakes.
They had like the press release of Benioff and Weiss are doing Star Wars, and then we heard their pitch and decided never mind. I'm like, okay, just calm down with the announcements.
Maybe someone at Lucasfilm is still burned by the end of Game of Thrones.
Well,
and they were like,
no. A lot of us are.
Yeah, fair.
I will say though, like, I'm not anti them. Like,
I'm not either.
The first 4 seasons of that show, you know what? I even liked it up until season 7. Like, a lot of people crapped on seasons 5 and 6. I didn't hate them. I definitely think that, like, the storytelling got a little rushed, but I was still invested. I was still having a great time every week.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the end left me kind of deflated.
Oh, I loved the show, and I did not read the books, so that might change your mind. But my biggest thing was I loved Daenerys, and I just didn't like how they ended her story.
Like, the ending of the White Walkers and the ending for Daenerys kind of took the wind out of my sails. But we had 8 years of just, like, having watch parties and having fun with our friends and loving that show. So I'm like, I'm not anti Game of Thrones now or anything, but I'm diverging.
See, wasn't there a rumor that they were going to do an Old Republic thing, or like,
I think that was just kind of the popular theory.
Yeah. I'm down for that still. If they were to ever come back and do something for Star Wars and it was an Old Republic thing, that would be cool.
Yeah. I don't know. But that was the news, and it was just like, oh, that's what their pitch was. Okay. Like, I kind of just shrugged and moved on until I saw the way it was being talked about, of like the juicy headlines.
So juicy.
They always get you. But that's it for today's Q&A/discussion episode. A little different, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking with you.
This will be more of what it's going to be like. We are still going to change the background up a little bit. Maybe we'll get started on that this weekend.
At some point. It's going to be a big job because we have to take everything off the bookshelves, move the bookshelves, put everything back on the bookshelves, and not drop any Lego sets. Don't. Molly can't handle any of the Lego sets.
Oh, no.
But that's it for today. So if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.